was trying to save it. What's about to happen was always going to happen. Sirach and his brother were just holding it off.
Well, this is the last Westworld we'll see for at least 2 years, and as always, this finale was filled with Easter eggs, meaning symbolism, and all sorts of tiny things that you might have missed, so let's get to it. The episode is called Crisis Theory, which has a few different meanings. This was part of Marx's philosophy that stated that eventually profits in a capitalist society would eventually decline, leading to the collapse of the entire system. This episode features the collapse of the world economic system. Crisis theory is also a technique used by social workers as a way to determine when to intervene in a person's moment of high crisis. Essentially, an intervention is most effective when the subject is most distressed and closest to suicide, when their fight or flight response is the most acute. In other words, the more desperate you are, the more likely you are to accept help. Sirach and his brother created Rehoboam to prevent humanity from destroying itself, in effect, intervening just before the moment of suicide. He does this literally when he stops Caleb from implementing Solomon's program and destroying the world. The episode begins with Dolores' Beauty in the World monologue that opened the entire series.
Some people choose to see the ugliness in this world. I choose to see the beauty.
Now, this whole time, we thought that her statement was meant to be ironic, but how nice is it that she really did see the beauty in the world? When Bernard activates other Bernard, this is another form of fight or flight. So in a way, this other self's intervention is another form of crisis theory. Remember, we also saw him do this in episode 1. Lawrence shows up as Dolores' final copy. Now, I'm not sure who this other cop is, maybe someone from the Rico app. And a little detail, I like how the cops' face masks feature body cams. This is meant to make them accountable for their actions, but ends up making them look more inhuman, like the drones in the park. Lawrence hands over the briefcase that Musashi was carrying in the last episode that contains the visor that grants access to the Sublime. We see the world is spinning out of control with divergences everywhere. But what about last episode when Sirach's watch showed everything was under control?
It's done.
I'm betting this was a simulation of the future, not a live read of what was actually happening. Riots are erupting on the streets of Los Angeles. Notice how everyone is dressed in rave clothing. This was an intentional costume design.
Think Burning Man a little bit. So there was a sense of wild reprieve from having lived in a very organized society.
For instance, this protester goes to clubs all the time. That's your mom. And the protesters had plenty of time to make signs for the background, such as "We will not be categorized" and the Black Power fist, which appears here. There are also copies of the maze all over the episode. In Season 1, the maze was a symbol to show the host path to sentience, and here it's also a symbol of human self-determination. I particularly noticed this Eye of Providence. Now, before this symbol was adopted to represent every conspiracy theory ever, it was primarily a Christian symbol that meant God is watching over you. But in this case, the eye is actually the Insight logo, a globe that is shaped to look like a maze. There's also a parallel here with Solomon, the proto-Rehoboam, which is constructed from triangular shapes. Caleb takes Dolores' pearl to another branch of the Itai Doshin distillery, which we first saw in episode 4. This word is a Buddhist concept that means one mind in many bodies, a reference to Dolores' mind being in many hosts. Dolores returns to her original metal body, which gave us this badass moment later on. We learned that Caleb has met Dolores before in Park 5. The Westworld website confirmed that this park is classified and used for military purposes. Henario is also one of the hosts he saved, and one of the terrorists was Major Craddock, who always seemed to play a heavy in the park as well. Caleb's brainwaves were recorded by his helmet, just as all the wealthy park guests were recorded by their hats. In the train station, this goon's jacket appears to read, "You untied that motherfucker." I'm going to guess this is a reference to Alexander the Great untying the Gordian knot. According to an oracle, whoever was able to untie this knot would conquer Asia. Alexander responded by cutting it with his sword, using violence to both conquer and destroy. In the same way, Caleb and Dolores have cut the knots holding humanity in a violent, spectacular fashion. When Charlotte communicates with Dolores, her eyes glaze over, just like when humans use the AR goggles that we've seen elsewhere in this season. Maeve says to Dolores,
"Are you going to make him into another William?"
Which, oddly enough, another version of Dolores does in the post-credits scene. And how badass was this line?
"You're all copies of me."
Bernard has always been part human, part host because he's programmed with Arnold's memories and his cornerstone, the painful memory of his son's death. Bernard goes to see Arnold's wife Lauren, who is played by Gina Torres. She has dementia just like Caleb's mother, and this isn't an accident. They talk about the memory of Charlie and him living on through memories. The hosts were only able to evolve when they began to remember and learn from their past. Therefore, it's memories that make us sentient. To show the importance of memory, Season 1 jumped around in time to show Dolores' confusion. In Season 2, humans try to live forever by preserving their memories inside machines. And this season, Caleb's memory was scrambled to show how Rehoboam made him part of a system of control. And now, Lauren talks about how we live on through the memories of others, achieving a kind of immortality.
The only part of Charlie I had left was his memory. And if I died, the darkness would take that too.
This makes Dolores' final fate, having her memories erased, even more tragic. Lauren's address is also an Easter egg. She lives on Ravens Road, and ravens are thought to connect mortals to the land of the dead.
Nevermore.
Why, you little...
Just as she reconnects Bernard to Charlie, and in a way, reconnects Bernard to the deceased Arnold. When Caleb is captured, Maeve says,
You made it all the way to the belly of the beast.
This is a storytelling term from Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. It's the moment of the hero's greatest despair. Since Maeve was constructed to be a part of a story, it makes sense that she would think in these terms. Sirach starts his fly in the ointment speech that we've heard before. Maeve picks up this broadcast via a chip he's implanted behind his ear that sends him Rehoboam's commands. That's when she realizes that he's forfeited sentience and he's simply doing Rehoboam's bidding. And there were a few hints that this was the case. His first name, Ingarud, is a German variation of the word angel. And angels exist to serve God, just as Sirach serves humanity's new god, Rehoboam. In Season 1, Ford talked about the bicameral mind, the idea that primitive humans heard the voice of God in their heads as a stepping stone to sentience. He and Arnold used this voice to help the host find sentience as well. But in this case, Sirach has submitted to this voice and become more of a machine than man. And this season's been all about how machines learn to behave like humans and how humans behave like machines, and this reveal is the end result of Sirach's plan for humanity, for everyone to become part of a system, in effect, a living machine. Maeve and Dolores speak in a simulated world. Note the letterbox bars here. They're both wearing their original clothes from the park when each of them were at their happiest and most innocent. In effect, like they're revisiting their childhoods. And what a wonderful, touching goodbye to Dolores.
I remember the moments where I saw what they were really capable of.
I mean, she could come back. Her mind still exists in Lawrence and Mushashi's head, but Bernard implies that the real Dolores is gone for good.
I think Dolores is gone.
Maeve says,
Solomon's access was the last memory.
and we actually see Dolores downloading Solomon's access in the final moments of episode 7. Maeve and Caleb have a bit of a Fight Club ending watching the world explode. The explosions are probably caused by the barrels Lawrence was carrying earlier in the episode. She ends with her original monologue from the Mariposa, talking about the new world.
This is the new world. And in this world, you can be whoever the you want.
And the final song is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, which totally syncs up with The Wizard of Oz, you guys. Take some mushrooms and try it, I'm telling you. The literal dark side of the moon is the part of Luna that is facing away from us that isn't visible from Earth. In other words, there's a part of us that we can't see, but it's always there. Until now, the world was blind to its system of control. But now people have been given a choice to look at the other part of themselves and choose a new path. In Season 1, Ford stated that he thought humans couldn't evolve and could no longer choose their own fate.
It means that we are done. That this is as good as we're gonna get.
He saw the hosts as superior because they could change. This season, Dolores helped Caleb prove that he was wrong, and humans can evolve and choose their own path. So his story brings these questions of self-determination full circle.
She gave me a choice. I believe the rest of the world deserves one too.
In the first post-credits scene, William shows up at Delos and breezes past the hilarious stand-up comedian Suba Argawal. And then we have our setup for Season 4's main villain, Charlotte. If Dolores chose to see the beauty in the world, then she's chosen to see the ugliness.
What happened to Hale's family? To your family? I'm sorry.
I'm not. They were a weakness.
She's using a host of William to do her bidding. Now remember, Bernard praised Dolores' dramatic irony in the last episode.
Dolores was made with a poetic sensibility. She won't destroy humanity. He will.
And now we see that she's building an army of hosts for the great human-robot wars to come. This also ties in with that cryptic post-credit scene from Season 2's finale. William shows up in the remains of the Forge and realizes he's been experiencing a fidelity test. That could have been this version of William trying to become sentient, implying that this character will be a little more complex than just being Charlotte's lackey. In the final post-credit scene, which the producers have said happens far in the future, Bernard wakes up covered in dust. He's been in the Sublime, studying and learning. Hopefully, he becomes more of a driving force in Season 4. And this season, he was mostly in the background, reacting to other people's plans. What did you guys think of the season? Let me know in the comments below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.